Hi Cozy Hobby friends! Today is an exciting day. It is new pen day for me, where I recently got these Jinhao 100 Centennial fountain pens off of AliExpress. I have them in 3 different nib sizes. There's extra fine, fine, and medium. But I wasn't able to find online a comparison of the nibs and lines for this particular pen, so that's what I'm hoping to do today. And if you're curious, here is what they're inked with. The extra fine is with Midnight, fine, Hope Pink, and the medium with Sepia. They're all diamine fountain pen inks, and I'm hoping that with the same brand, we can kind of get a better comparison between the different nibs and lines. I'm hoping to use this extra fine pen in my Hobonichi or any sort of paper with tiny grids. Here is what the nib looks like, this extra fine nib. It still does look pretty close to a fine size nib for a Japanese fountain pen. For example, here's my Pilot Kakuno. It's kind of dirty, but yeah, these two look quite similar. My first impression writing with this pen is it is quite smooth. The line weight does look a little bit thick, but I think that's because these Jinhaos use a Western nib size, which is typically thicker than the Japanese ones. So just for comparison, let's write with my Pilot Kakuno as well. If I look at this, I think the Kakuno is even thinner than the extra fine Jinhao. It's really hard to tell the difference, but I can see that the extra fine Jinhao is just a tiny bit thicker than the Pilot Kakuno, but the writing experience feels very similar. Here I have my fine tip Jinhao 100. Let's see what that looks like. For this one, it felt like the ink was very juicy. It felt really nice coming out of the pen, very easy to write with, and obviously a little bit thicker than the extra fine. But yeah, it was a really nice writing experience. I am curious as to how this compares with my TWSBI Eco fine tip. So let's try that out. They're pretty similar. Finally, I have my medium nib Jinhao. While I was writing, I could see the ink coming out. It was so satisfying. And since this is medium nib, it's going to be the most juicy out of them all. It was definitely apparent here. Now, I've seen online that people would compare medium nibs to almost like a broad nib, and here is a TWSBI broad nib. I don't think they are that similar. I honestly think that this TWSBI broad nib, oh yeah, it's much more thick. Look at this. I would not use this broad nib inside of a small graph paper like this. So that's what these 3 pens look like in the Hobonichi with the graph paper. I would probably still stick with either the extra fine or the fine in this kind of paper because I think the writing is just more legible. I am going to try writing with the medium in papers that can be blank, which we will test next in my Midori. Here is my Midori MD notebook paper. It is a completely blank notebook, and my handwriting definitely changes depending on the fountain pen that I'm using. For example, here it must have been some sort of extra fine or fine point, maybe one of my Pilot Kakunos, and then when I use a TWSBI, my handwriting looks slightly bigger. So I'm interested in seeing what all of these different nib sizes will look like while I write in a blank notebook. All right, adding to my existing pen test here. Here is the extra fine. Fine tip. And at last, the medium. I will say that this medium offered the most pleasant writing experience because the ink just flowed right out of it. It is very, very satisfying to see. Here we can even see a comparison between this and my other medium nib. I think the ink also affects the way that the line weight comes out because in this one I was using Ferris wheel press, a very shimmery ink, and the line weight wasn't as thick. But here, if I just use like a regular ink with no shimmer, it looks a lot thicker. I just did a little writing sample in here, and it was so fun to try using all three of the different pen nibs. I will say that even though my handwriting maybe looks a little bit more legible here with the thinner pens, I just enjoyed the experience of writing with the thicker medium nib so much more because the ink just flowed straight out of there. It felt so awesome. And I don't know if it is the ink or if it is the pen. I am excited to continue trying this with other kinds of inks, but with this ink, it just was so easy to write with and very satisfying. Finally, we're going to try out these pens in my media journal, which is just a regular old notebook that's 100 GSM that I got off of Amazon. It's just a cheap notebook, not made for fountain pens, unlike the other two that I just showed. So let's see how it performs in here. This paper is a 5mm grid, so I'm interested in seeing how that looks with my handwriting and these pen weights. I realize that I really don't love writing in this kind of notebook paper when I am using my finer points. So this is my Pilot Kakano. I wanted to show you just how it looks compared to a Japanese fine. To me, the writing experience with these Japanese fine tips in just regular old notebook paper is not that nice. It just feels really scratchy. I didn't get that sense while writing with the Centennial Extra Fine though. Maybe because the nib is a little bit thicker than the fine. Now let's compare it with the fine. Finally, the medium tip. Wow, every time writing with this medium tip, I am so pleased with the way the ink flows right out of there. I always thought that I would be someone who loves fine points, but now that I've tried thicker, bolder nibs, I am so taken with them. But for me personally, I think I like the fine tip the most in this notebook. I just like the way my handwriting looks and the letters are more legible, plus it didn't feel scratchy. So that's what I would go with if I were to write in this notebook. But that's what makes writing with fountain pens so fun, right? You get to use whatever pen you want and pair it with whatever ink and notebook. To me, it is so customizable. I use different pens with different nib sizes for different notebooks. But overall, all three pens were excellent writers, nothing felt scratchy, so I am looking forward to continue writing with these again. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if there are other fountain pens that are beautiful, cheap, but also well-constructed like these that you would recommend, and send them my way. I would love to take a look. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.